there are some people who can fund a reaction to election matters in a way that is against the interest of some other people. Whereas election matters is the same for every citizen. So if there are some people who will fund discussing elections against the interest of others, it means that you are suggesting that those who don't want credible elections exist and have power. So you are saying, therefore, and this is because, and I want to be very, I'm getting very angry in the way I respond to questions these days, because the media, which I'm part of, is the problem. Yeah. It is a problem in Nigeria. You come on television, Seun Okinbaloye says to you, the people who are, what's this nonsense Seun often asks, the people who are disgruntled against who? It's nonsense. Yes. But it's deliberately designed to create a narrative that those who have power have something, and then some people who don't have it want to disagree with them. I taught journalism. If you're in my class and you ask that kind of stupid question, you will fail. Okay? The media should stop allowing those narratives to take concrete form. It is the reification of a myth as language of professional teaching in journalism. Okay? People are reifying myths. The Nigerian people want credible elections. And so the Nigerian people, wherever they are, even if they are political parties, let me even say that, have a right and a duty to seek credible elections. Oh, yes. So trying to make it, are these politicians from some party? Why should that be a problem? Yes, they are not. They are civil society people. They are citizens who want their country to have dignity. Right now, Nigeria is a joke when you talk about elections in the world. And I'm talking as somebody who has sat down with world leaders, Secretary of State in America, Prime Minister in Canada, and those, and they laugh about elections in Nigeria. Do you want that kind of disgrace and humiliation to continue in your country? I have a personal statement that I will distribute to you also about this. And I'm saying that the Attorney General of Nigeria has a duty to prosecute leaders of the National Assembly who have broken the agency function and their obligation for representing the Nigerian people, and are actually using their positions to propound criminality perspectives of preventing the will of the people from being the outcome of elections. Attorney General, if you use the US model, and that's why the Attorney General's office is sort of independent of the executive branch. That's why Senator Sessions resigned under the current, somebody I know, I've had lunch with. He resigned as Attorney General because you're supposed to have a certain independence, even if you're part of that executive, because you represent the interest of the people. So this Attorney General should begin prosecuting Senate leaders who are deliberately carrying out a coup against the Nigerian people by trying to confuse the elections process so that rigging is possible. And so where are the funding of such people coming from? For 50 years, I've been in the trenches in this country. Nobody has ever given me funds from anywhere. I've used money from my pocket. I ran Patito's Gang on TV for 20 years. Companies were afraid to advertise on it. But I kept the money from my pocket. Why didn't you ask me then, where's the funding for Patito's Gang coming from? So we have to be careful as reporters that we do not become part of the problem. Marshall McLuhan said back in the 60s that the medium is the message. The medium is the massage. Don't massage the news in a way that does damage Nigerian people. If not, the day that the people will rise, you will be part of the target. And the people will rise soon. I'm assuring you, the way Nigeria is going, there will be a people's revolution. And those who think that they are complicit, who are complicit, but who think, who are, by the time the things begin to happen, they will be able to tell you from the guys who are doing the evil all of us will pay the price. Part of what has happened is that the judiciary is losing credibility in Nigeria almost completely. This is dangerous for Nigeria because central to civilization, modern civilization, is the rule of law. And if the judiciary cannot be trusted, the rule of law is lost. All is lost. And so in these remarks, I have said that among the 7, maybe we won't find a particular one, urgent requests that the Nigerian Bar Association should start a process of investigation for delisting all judges and lawyers who have played roles in reducing the legitimacy of the judiciary. Besides, they are playing those roles, and media, everybody can contribute to seeing this. I've also called for international action. You see, and I have to be very honest with you, we talk about sovereignty and all this stuff. In 1996, under Abacha, I took a sabbatical leave and left this country to campaign around the world that institutions, national institutions, are so weak in some poor countries that we need supranational institutions. I went before editorial boards of newspapers in Europe, in North America, to canvass this. Most of them said to me, it will not happen. And I told them the story of how sovereignty emerged. I talked about the so-called defenestration of Prague. How many of you are familiar with the defenestration of Prague? When in 1618, the Holy Roman Empire, as the Germans pretended to be emperors of, sent delegates to Prague and they threw them out of the window. That's what's called the defenestration of Prague. They started the so-called 30 Years' War in Europe. It was in concluding that 30-year war that they had the Peace of Westphalia. The Peace of Westphalia established the modern nation state as we know it and the doctrine of non-interference. That doctrine was invariably found wanting with the genocides against the Armenians and then the Jews in Germany, leading to the United Nations Fundamental Declaration on International Human Rights that called for self-determination. And I said to them that if the weakness of institutions, which is central to modern national well-being, are so weak that a government can run roughshod over its own citizens, then there must be recourse to supranational institutions. And I call for an international criminal, I call for 2 courts, an international criminal court and an international economic justice court, where a leader like Mobutu, for example, and I had Mobutu clearly in mind at the time, could pillage his country and keep poverty where it is, that such a leader should be able to be tried, should be triable in an international court. And I said most of the journalists, many of whom I know personally, Delegiva talks about how he got to know me from my writings in the 70s in the Christian Science Monitor in Boston. Even the editorial board of Christian Science Monitor told me that I was a little idealistic. But guess what? 2 years later, the Rome Treaty was passed and the International Criminal Court was established. I have not given up on that struggle. And we should, I don't care what people say, take leaders from Africa or anywhere in the world who act against the interests of their people in a way that leads to real deaths of human beings, because the ultimate gift is the dignity of the human person. And those people should be able to be tried abroad. INEC is significantly funded by foreign donors. Those foreign donors have an accountability to their taxpayers whose money they're using to give INEC. And then all the nonsense that takes place in INEC takes place. So a panel, an international panel is worth being established. To find INEC people who have behaved badly, even if it's 20 years ago, and send them to jail. This must happen. Because there's no consequence management in this country. Consequence management is the reason we have bad behavior everywhere. And so if we send somebody who was in INEC 20 years ago to jail, and it serves it out in Fuji Islands, people coming to INEC in the next round will behave differently. So our judges who have ruined the reputation of our country be made to pay a price. This is the challenge we have.
Thank you very much.